Part 2 of how my online boyfriend hired a hitman off the dark web to kill me. My online boyfriend continued to get more and more controlling. He told me to keep my webcam on 24/7 even when I was asleep or wasn't home. He wanted to know exactly what I was doing at every moment of the day. This is when I finally made it clear that I wanted to break up, and he went ballistic. He told me he knows where I live and he's going to show up at my house. When that didn't keep me around and I stopped talking to him, his threats kept getting more and more serious. He threatened to leak my private photos online if I didn't stay with him. I still refused, which made him even angrier. He told me he has connections online and he could ruin my life if he wants to. He also told me that if I leave him, he'll make sure that I regret it. I blocked him on everything and changed my number. A few months passed and I hadn't heard anything from him. One morning I woke up and had a bunch of missed calls and text messages from my online group of friends. They were freaking out asking me if I heard what happened to my ex. It turns out he got arrested for trying to hire a hitman on the dark web. They sent me links to a few small news articles about him confirming it, and I was horrified. The person he was trying to get assassinated was never confirmed, but I'm almost certain that it was me. Crime Fanatic Friday, the mother who claimed postpartum depression is why she killed her 5 children. Growing up, Andrea Kennedy Yates was a model student and citizen. She then later went on to become a registered nurse. When she met her husband, Rusty Yates, they quickly fell in love and spent most of their time in religious study and prayer. Within 8 years of marriage, they produced 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl. Friends of the family said that Andrea became reclusive and isolated after her second pregnancy. In 1999, Andrea had a mental breakdown and the next day she was hospitalized for overdosing on pills. After this, she began self-mutilating and refused to feed her children, claiming they ate too much. She also started having hallucinations. She went to therapy and later in court, her therapist ranked her among the 5 sickest patients she had ever seen. After her second suicide attempt, she was put on antipsychotics and her condition improved greatly. Andrea was back to cooking, swimming, and socializing again. This all came to a halt when she felt pregnant again and stopped taking her medication. Her mental state also became regressed after her father's death. She started seeing her psychiatrist again and everyone was hopeful. However, on June 20th, 2001, no one could possibly know the terrifying actions Andrea would take. Part 2, the mother who claimed postpartum depression is why she killed her 5 children. Andrea's husband consistently pressured her into having more children, disregarding her deteriorating mental health after each pregnancy. She filled the tub with water and drowned her 3 youngest boys, then placed them on her bed and covered them. Her firstborn ran away from her after seeing his sister in the tub and asking his mother what was wrong. Andrea caught him, and as he screamed, she forced him into the tub next to his sister's body. He fought desperately, but she outmatched his strength. She then brought her daughter to the bed along with the boys and laid her in their arms. She then called 911 and told them what she'd done. She was still completely drenched when arrested. During her trial, Andrea explained her actions, stating that she was a bad mother and needed to be punished. In 2002, her controversial trial lasted 3 weeks and the jury found her guilty of capital murder, giving her life in prison. However, in 2006, she was given a retrial where the jury of 6 men and 6 women found her not guilty by reason of insanity. She was sent to a Texas hospital indefinitely and consistently waives a review of her status, which is the only way that she can be released. This leads to a question: was she mentally ill and the system failed her, or should she have been held accountable for her actions? My partner of over 3 years has been living with me for the past 18 months. We're in our 30s, happy, and talk about how this is it for us, relationship-wise. There's just one problem. He doesn't want to get married, and I really do. Marriage is important to me. However, after many long discussions, I realized that I love him enough to stay and take marriage off the table, even though I really want it. Now here's the issue. I got paperwork for my insurance a few days ago, and I made a joke about how my parents are going to be really comfortable if I die, especially in an accident, because of my insurance policies and the added accidental death insurance I have. My boyfriend and I got to talking, and he mentioned how I should really change my beneficiary to him. I said no, absolutely not. I told him I would never make anyone who isn't blood or legal family my beneficiary. I said I would add him in the future if one day he decided he wanted to get married, but as it stands now, my insurance will remain as is. I also told him I wouldn't add him to the title of my house without marriage because I bought it before we got together and I own it. Now he thinks that I'm an asshole for holding marriage as a bargaining chip. We don't have to get married, but I'm not comfortable tying my finances to him without it. So am I wrong? I talked to my boyfriend and he seemed weird in our talk. He's been weird a lot lately, but I've been excusing it. He told me that putting him on as an insurance beneficiary was partially as a joke, but then when I went on my wild tangent and included the house title that he never even mentioned, he got offended and reacted poorly. He felt like I was retaliating due to the no marriage talks, and he was left with a bitter taste, which I get. I can be more than forceful, and I'm also naturally passive-aggressive. He said I don't have to put him on anything, but he needs me to understand that I am it for him, and he wants to make his life with me. Things seem better after this. That weekend, he took me to a hike with this beautiful waterfall. Once we got there, he pulled out an envelope from his jacket and a tiny bow on it and told me to open it. At first, I was confused, but then I looked, and the purchase highlighted date was circled with a heart. It was early August, and that was before our no marriage talks. Then I turned and saw him with the ring. I said yes. He said he knew that I would never believe he had the ring before all of this without the receipt. He was acting so weird this whole time in order to fool me so I didn't get suspicious because this was his plan all along. He wanted a fall proposal. We'll add each other as beneficiaries once we're married, but there is no need to add him to the title of my This is why you should be extremely careful when meeting up with someone you met online. When I was 18, I was freshly single and ready to mingle. I had a dating profile on that website, Plenty of Fish. One day I got a message from a guy who was 8 to 10 years older than me. At that time, I didn't care about age, so I messaged back. The initial plan was to meet at the movie theater, but while I was getting ready, he asked if I could come to his apartments and we could go to the theater together. Not thinking much of it, I agreed and headed over. The address he sent me was about 35 minutes out, but I really didn't mind making the drive. On the way there, I had this weird feeling in the pit of my stomach, but I just chalked it up to being nervous. However, the closer I got, the more this feeling grew. You know that feeling when you feel like something really bad's about to happen? When I was about 5 minutes away, I decided to call my best friend and tell her how I was feeling. She told me that if I'm feeling this way, then I probably shouldn't go inside his apartment and that I should text him. When I got there, I parked outside of his apartment building and I shot him a text. I told him I wasn't comfortable coming inside and if we could just meet at the movies. This is when he started flipping out on me. He said I told him I would come inside, so I needed to come inside, and that he was going to come and get me and I had nothing to be afraid of. This is when things got crazy. Part 2 of why you should be careful when meeting up with someone you met online. He kept trying to get me to go inside of his apartment despite me telling him that I wanted to meet at a public place like we originally planned. He told me to stop being weird and to come inside because I was already there. At this point, I went with my gut feeling, apologized, and told him that I didn't want to see him. This is when he went ballistic. He started cursing me out and telling me that I wasted his only day off. He told me he was already on his way outside to come and get me. As I was looking down at my phone and texting him back, someone tried to open my car door from the outside. Luckily, I always keep my doors locked. I looked up and it was him. That's when he told me to open the door and that I was going to come inside with him. I was mortified with shock, so I didn't respond right away. He punched my driver's side window and told me to open the effing door. I immediately started my car and booked it while he was yelling at me. As I was driving home and terrified and trying to catch my breath, he texted me nonstop. He told me that I needed to make this up to him and to meet him at a park with a skirt on. I made it clear that I was never going to do that or see him again, and that if he kept contacting me, I was going to contact the police. He kept texting me, so I blocked his number. Always trust your gut, share your location with your best friend, and meet in a public place. 2020 was a terrible year, especially for my family. We lost our dad in the beginning of the year after he had a heart attack, and my little brother had no one to take care of him. Our mom passed away when he was 3, so our dad was all we had left. I fought for custody and was appointed his legal guardian. It hasn't been easy and we're still adjusting, especially my brother who's taking it the hardest. For months he just wasn't himself, bad attitude and lashing out. I got him into therapy because I knew he was hurting. His behavior improved so much since then, even if he's still withdrawn sometimes. This was the first Christmas without our father, and my brother just wanted to be alone. We talked about his feelings and then I gave him space. My girlfriend was over that day and I went out to go buy groceries. When I got back, my brother was out of his room and helping out. I didn't think anything of it at the time. On New Year's Eve, I was hanging out with my brother and talking before I went back home to get ready. That's when he opened up about how grateful he is for everything and he hopes I don't change my mind about taking care of him. I asked him why he would think that and he told me what happened. That day when I was out, my girlfriend went into his room and told him he needs to change his attitude and stop moping, because he should be grateful that I'm taking care of him at all, and that we could still hand him over to the state if we wanted to. My brother was so worried that I was going to give him back to the state. I reassured him that was never going to happen, but I was furious with my girlfriend and I confronted her. When I did, she didn't deny it. She told me it's true and there's nothing wrong with telling him to stop acting like that when he should be grateful that I gave up my life to take care of him. And the thing about giving him up isn't a big deal because it's not like I'll actually do it. I told her that she scared him with that threat and I told her to leave my apartment because honestly, I was furious. And I didn't want her to be around my brother at the time. She started crying and then we fought some more and then she left and it was just my brother and I for New Year's. Since last night, I've been bombarded with calls from all of our friends for kicking her out, knowing she has no family and nobody else to spend this holiday with. Everyone has sided with her and even my best friend says I may have overreacted by making her leave and she probably thought she was just helping. They've heard my side of the story, but they still think that I was an ass for making her cry and spending the new year alone. I'm having trouble seeing how I could be, so here I am looking for internet strangers to weigh in on this. So did I overreact? I run a small business where I do calligraphy. I do Redbubble stickers and wedding invitations. My brother got married to his girlfriend before the world went to hell, but there's an incident that she's still angry with me for and refuses to speak to me. For her wedding, she asked me if I would do the invitations. I was fine with doing them as a wedding gift until I realized she was having a 200+ wedding and wanted handwritten menus, invitations, name cards, as well as table cards with facts about her and her fiancé. And of course, she picked the most expensive stationery and most elaborate designs that she could. I was straightforward in telling her I wouldn't be able to finance these since I've both been saving up for college, but I would do it if she paid for all the supplies and I would just give her a regular wedding gift. She told me that we would work out the details, to which I assumed she meant the price and budget for supplies. So it took a long time, but I finished the wedding invitations and they're ready to go. I asked my sister-in-law to reimburse me for the cost and she flips her shit and refuses to pay me. She says I'm taking advantage of her and that I should be nicer because the wedding's already really expensive and I was doing this purposely to exclude her from the new family. What I did next is why she's angry